Welcome back, gentlefolk and rapscallions of all persuasions, because today I'm going to talk about how I read 3 million words just to get to 3 books that Brandon Sanderson wrote, and I wasn't happy about it the entire time. So, I'm going to do my best not to give too many spoilers because I understand that there are still people in the world who have not discovered Wheel of Time, and there are plenty of recommendations as to why you should read it. It is an iconic series, and it did a lot of things that fantasy hadn't done before, because it started in the early 90s, and it may seem trite and cliche now because other authors have copied things that it did, but it really was unique for its time, and I want to acknowledge that and address it and say that this is me not telling you not to read it. I just didn't enjoy myself. So, really quick, before I get into that, I would like you to guess on that bookshelf how much you think 3 million words is. I'll give you a second to lock in your guess. Excuse me, sir. That's 1 million words. Yeah, I read the equivalent of the entire Harry Potter series, the first 3 books in the Inheritance cycle, because we don't have book 4, and then the remainder of it is just about halfway through A Dance with Dragons. It's about 3.25 million words. And that is just what I read to get to what Sanderson wrote, which was another almost million words. I think it was 976,000 for The Gathering Storm, Towers of Midnight, and A Memory of Light. We'll come back to the length of A Memory of Light in just a minute. So the place that I'm getting all of those numbers from is this Reddit post. I included the username of the person who did it because it's a very nice little graph and they deserve the credit for that. And yeah, we'll get there. I started Wheel of Time in 2013. I got up to book 6 or 7. I think I was in Lord of Chaos when I stopped. And then 2020, and all of that happened. I was sitting there and I was like, I'm a Sanderson fan. I really want to say that I have read all of the epic fantasy books that Sanderson has written, but I have to get through these other 10 of them first. And that was a big thing that I had to get over, because apparently I had to be a completionist, which, no, I'm not still salty that I don't have Herald 7 through 9 from the story deck. That doesn't bother me, even in the slightest, at all. And here's where I made my mistake. Because I had already gone through half or so of the series, I already knew that there were things that profoundly bothered me about all of the characters, and I mean all of them, because it's a very popular rebuttal when somebody complains about the female characters in this series to be like, oh, they just are acting in masculine ways and they are taking things out in anger instead of more feminine, accepted ways. And you wouldn't be acting like this if those characters were men. No, everybody in this series bothers me. The men bother me, the women bother me, everybody in this series bothers me. Let's just get that out of the way. And so my mistake was, when I went back into it, I didn't let myself get invested in any of the characters. Because if I wasn't trying to root for them, if I wasn't trying to be invested in the character arc they were having. They couldn't bother me as much as they did the first time around. And also, Fail and Perrin have massively different cultural expectations of a relationship between a man and a woman. And having that as more than subtext in one singular conversation is necessary for your reader not to hate Fail for the next 11 books. I missed that conversation the first time around, and every time she was on the page, I wanted to throw my phone against the wall because I was listening to the audiobooks. And having that one conversation with the subtext in it between, I think, her parents show up, I was like, oh, that clears up a lot of stuff, but I wasn't listening close enough the first time around. I still don't like Fail because, back to, everybody in this series annoys me, but I hate her less than I did the first time around. Okay. Speaking of the audiobooks, Domani and Damane, which Kate Redding pronounced basically the same the entire time. It's an easy enough thing to understand. However, those are radically different cultural expectations. So you can understand why I was a little confused sometimes when I was hearing these words where they maybe didn't belong. That was off-putting too. I fully understand the people who were upset when Matt doesn't show up for an entire book, and then when Sanderson takes over writing, he's a completely different character. Those are 100% valid criticisms. Matt was not my favorite character. I didn't have a favorite character. But I saw that shift happen, and I had that book where I was like, oh, Matt didn't show up at all, did he? I bet that made some people mad. Sure enough, it did. And if it's one thing that Wheel of Time and Sanderson, independently of one another, are known for, it is length. Because this is a 14-book series, plus a prequel, which I haven't read, which I factored into the word count. I was not counting New Spring in the word count that I got through. New Spring is another, 121-something thousand words. I don't know. The comment section on that chart of the word count did not disappoint. Because chapter 37 of A Memory of Light. I was listening to this audiobook when I had to drive 3 hours to Los Angeles as part of my job, and it felt like the progress bar was creeping along pretty slowly. And then I took a closer look at it later. Going just by audiobook length, I know that word count and audiobook length are not a one-to-one correlation because some narrators read faster and some narrators read slower. The final battle, chapter 37 of A Memory of Light, is longer than the first Harry Potter book. It might be longer than the second Harry Potter book in terms of word count, but it definitely is in terms of audio length. Sanderson. Why? I just put up a video a couple weeks ago talking about Wind and Truth, and the Sanderlanche for Wind and Truth was 400 pages long. But at least there were chapter breaks. Sir. Why? This was my favorite comment about it. I'll leave that there for just a minute while I process my continued feelings on this, and it has been a couple of years. And looping back to my main point of all of this about not letting myself get invested in the characters meant that every single payoff that Sanderson did fell flat for me. I stand by the fact that series live and die by setup and payoff, and Sanderson's best written ending to a fantasy ever, hands down, is Hero of Ages. Fight me in the comments. But A Memory of Light had such a big task. It had to wrap up so many things with so many characters. It had to give a satisfying ending, because there are neither beginnings nor endings to the Wheel of Time, and there was this feeling of all of this has happened before, all of this will happen again, but you still had to resolve everything that was going on with everyone. And I think that he did that really well. I didn't have the emotional beats from it because I didn't let myself, and at this point, I don't think that I'm going to go back and go through it all again, knowing how it turns out, to try and get that investment, because I know there's payoff. I might. Let me know if you want to see me suffer and do this kind of video for the whole Wheel of Time series, because I will. I have 81 subscribers as of today, and algorithm tell me what to give you so that you give me people. Yep, I think that's really where I was going with all this, is just, I kind of screwed it up for myself, because I didn't go in with the right attitude to be having when you are going into an epic fantasy, because you need to get invested in the characters. It's the only way that you're going to enjoy it. But I just decided to listen to 3.25 million words of fiction. That was a life decision I made. Please do all those delicious things that feed the almighty algorithm so that I can possibly grow this channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye.